What's up? This is Brandon from Bleeding Through, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 308 of Richard Metal Fan interviews, calling from Zoom. And I finally have the pleasure to speak with Brandan Schieppati from Bleeding Through. How are you doing today,
How's it going?
Brandon?
I'm doing well. Good to
Oh,
see you.
good to see you, man. It's so great to be able to talk with you today. So, kind of what I want to talk about is I want to talk about like your musical history and sort of do a rundown of your discography, but take me back to young Brandan Schieppati. So, kind of growing up in California, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to be a vocalist?
I mean, coming up in like the kind of underground, more like hardcore scene in Orange County, there was bands like Ignite, bands like Strife that we see all the time, and just a lot of like really cool hardcore bands here. But I really was like into like more of like the aggressive, like heavier style. So like when I got introduced to like bands like Integrity, I kind of was like, dude, like it didn't only make me like love the music, it actually made me like really want to vision myself being on stage. Whereas before I never really visioned that. So um like that was some of the stuff that like made me really want to like play music and be on stage. But I always really wanted to be a guitar player. So I really liked bands with like cool guitar players and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but like what came first, like guitar or vocals?
Guitar.
Awesome.
Yeah. Guitar was like my first thing. Like I really love I still do love playing guitar. I just don't really get a chance. But that's like what I really wanted to do. That's like what I preferred.
All right. And I was like doing my research like on Metal Archives. I was guessing like one of your first bands was Alphabet and The Mistake. Like I'm always curious about them. Like nobody ever talks about them.
Yeah, well, the mistake was like my friend Javier's band, and I played for them for like a couple of years, just playing guitar. Um, that was fun. That was just like, you know, hey, let's play some shows. Cool. You know what I mean? I didn't really do any touring and anything like that. Alphabet was just like a fun like pop punk band that we had for like about a year and a half. But we played shows and it was really fun to do, and it just kind of never went anywhere because people in the band were in like other bands like Adamantium and Throwdown and 18 Visions, and I think Sean at the time was in man, I don't even know, like Far Side. There was a lot of like everybody was in like a bunch of different other bands. So, but that's kind of what we did in Orange County. Like we were in like we kind of like all like played in each other's bands and put each other on shows and kind of just really built like a really cool community where we could all do those things.
All right. And I'm guessing like the one band I'm pretty sure everybody knows you in like is it 18 Visions? Like tell me
Mm-hmm.
about that. How'd you end up getting to know those guys?
Well, my friend Javier, the same person that sang for the band The Mistake, he started playing bass for them, and just kind of oddly enough, like they needed another guitar player, and I hadn't been playing guitar that long, maybe like a year or so, and but I was just like, dude, like I have to get a tryout, like I need to play in that band, and I just showed up, and I knew it, and yeah, they asked me if I wanted to join, and I just was in that. That was the best thing ever. Like when I
Yeah.
made that band, that was cool, man. That was a really cool time playing in that band. It was different. It was we were different from a lot of other bands, and even like what we looked like was different, and it was just one of those things where it was cool to be in a band that was making noise. You know what I mean? Like really like trying to do something kind of offbeat from like what other people were doing at the time.
Yeah. And you did the guessing the first thing was Lifeless in 97. So tell me about
Yes.
that. Was that like the first tell me about like that was like your first release with the band?
Yeah, it was. So Lifeless was like the first record that we did. And that was me and Dave Peters, who's Throwdown Dave Peters, who we were both playing guitar in that band then, and that was like those were some of the first songs I ever like learned on guitar.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
kind of crazy.
Nice. I think it's just a very raw sounding. Like, where was that recorded at?
That was recorded at a place called Selah Studios. Um, I think there was a band that we knew called Chorus of Disapproval from Orange County that recorded there. It was just some random fucking studio, man, and we did it in 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And then of course, like when that came out, like what was like you just played like locally just around like California and stuff?
Yeah, we did, but we started like once that record came out, we started playing like we would go to like Salt Lake City and play because we knew people there, and we booked shows where we knew friends and bands, and we would like really like get like just try to play as many places as we could. That was like
Nice.
my first like little dip into like touring and just being like part of that life.
All right. And then of course the next up is like the full length album. Yesterday is Time Killed. I thought that was
Yeah.
a great debut album from 18 Vision. So what was that whole like being that was like the first debut full length album?
Yeah, that was weird because it was like I was the only guitar player in the band then. That's right when Dave we parted ways with Dave, so it was kind of left up to me to pick up the slack writing a lot of guitar parts. So I was very proud of that record. I still sometimes will go back and listen to that record and be like, dude, like some of these songs were so crazy. Um, I think it was really ahead of its time. Like we listened to a lot of like heavier music, a lot of bands like Bloodlet and like different type of time signatures, and I was getting into like Meshuggah at the time and just stuff like that. So like that was a cool record, man.
Yeah, and honestly thought that was like the heaviest 18 Visions record to date
Agreed.
compared to the what you have done
Agreed.
before.
Well, I mean, until the Ink Runs Out came after that, and until or was the full length after that, and that was really heavy. I just think that record it was groundbreaking, and I felt like it was really good. Um, I just that was kind of the beginning of the end for me though in the band.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought like until the ink runs out, I thought it was good, and I thought the song titles are there were pretty funny, like
Yeah,
who the fuck killed John Lennon,
it's one of those
Lennon.
things where like I guess the only thing that I was not on board with at the time was kind of like lyrically, um, uh, you know, but it's kind of what made the band. And James, the thing that James is great at is just kind of like he's a really good lyricist, and but just I guess like for me, I wanted to be in a band that I could lyrically be behind and kind of like kind of feel it. So the whole time with 18 Visions, like I love the music and I love the band's so talented, but I just didn't connect on a level that the rest of the band was connecting on.
Yeah, and I
I didn't
know,
really.
yeah, and I know sort of like I kind of backtrack a little bit because I know you also were in Throwdown. You did
Yeah,
pretty much your only record with the band Beyond Repair. I thought that was a
yeah.
good album. So how did you get to know those guys?
Well, we were all friends, like all the bands were friends, and kind of coming like again like coming up around the same time. Like Adamantium was like the band, and 18 Visions was coming up at that time, and then like the new breed of bands were like Throwdown and stuff. So it was like I guess it's funny like all these bands got spawned out of like boredom. Like it was just everybody in all these bands like, hey, what do you want to do today? It was like, hey, let's start a fucking band. Like literally, that's how it was. And so they needed a guitar player, and I was like, fuck, I mean, might as well play guitar. Not thinking that we were joining bands, not thinking that we were ever going to tour or do anything like full time or anything like that. So it was like when those opportunities did come up, then it kind of created a point where like we would need to choose what bands we needed to be in. But back then it was like I was kind of available to play, and I loved the songs and I loved those dudes, and it was a really cool band. Really
Nice.
stoked to be a part of that band for sure.
Nice. And then of course, so after that you formed Bleeding Through, albeit like the first iteration was Breakneck. So
Yeah.
tell me about starting up Bleeding Through.
Well, I never really wanted to be a singer in a band, and but I ended up having to fill in a couple shows for Throwdown, and one was a home show, and Scott Deneau, who I started Bleeding Through with, was at that show, and he just came up to me after the show, was like, "You need to be a singer. Like, I have some songs written. Like, we should do it." So that's kind of how that came up,
Nice.
and we started that band like right away. So at the time, I was in like three bands. I mean, I played multiple shows, playing with 18 Visions Throwdown and Bleeding Through.
And how do you manage to like memorize all that shit?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was young, so I think it was pretty easy actually then.
Yeah, because I remember like watching you on Garza's podcast talking about that, and and I was like, damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty crazy. Those are fun times.
Hell yeah. Then of course you started playing around, and then I believe you got signed to your first record, which what label, which was Prime Directive Records.
Prime
So
Directive, yeah.
how did they find Bleeding Through?
That's again like Prime Directive. He put out like the first Throwdown record. I think he put out a couple of our friends' records, and he just was like, "Hey, like if no one's gonna put out your record, I'll put it out." And that was awesome that he did that. That really helped us. Kind of like we started like playing shows out of like state on that record, and then from there, like you know, we really wanted to be on Indecision. Yeah, that's awesome. We really wanted to be on Indecision Records because all of our friends were on that label, and we love the dude that runs that label, and so that's how we kind of segued to Indecision. So we kept everything like in the family. Like everything just was. It seemed like we wanted it. We felt safe and comfortable with everybody around here, so we just kind of wanted to just kind of follow like the footsteps of the bands before.
Yeah, but tell me about Dust to Ashes. I thought this, in my opinion, is a very underrated the debut album.
I
So
mean,
what was like the whole writing recording process like for the debut Bleeding Through album?
well, we did that in a couple days as well. I think that only took a couple days to record, and really with that record, if you go back and listen to that, that's nobody like. I don't know, it was like pat us on the back or whatever, but in our genre, there's elements on that record that were not being done before at fucking all. Like that record, I will say that record was massively ahead of the time for what it was in our genre. Like there was metal bands like that, but in like hardcore level, nobody was really doing that. So we really put that record out and kind of just didn't really know if people were going to actually like it.
Yeah,
Like
especially with
so, it
the
was like
especially
with
with like
keyboards
the
were different.
yeah, it adds a lot of like another layer, like a lot of
Yeah,
it's just hard to describe it. It just makes it very unique sounding.
yeah, definitely. And that's what we were going for. We just wanted really orchestral, very just like something different. We wanted to play blast beats, like we wanted to pay homage to a lot of like the Swedish death metal that we listened to and a lot of the black metal we listened to, because that's the shit that we were into. So we wanted to try to figure out elements of how to work that into like what our like background was of like hardcore music.
Yeah, and it definitely works well, 'cause especially having a lot of like the symphonic elements to like the hardcore elements, because at the time metalcore was starting to take hold, but it wasn't until
Yeah,
like later on in the mid 2000s where I feel like it became where it is with all like the Ozfest bands and the Warped Tour bands.
yeah, definitely,
And I feel like you have that mixture. Like I definitely get vibes of like Cradle, a Filth, Dimmuborg
for sure.
gear mix up with like of course the In Flames and Dark Tranquility.
Yeah, like those bands were massive influences for sure.
Hell yeah. And then moving on to the next album, Portrait of the Goddess. I
Yeah,
like this album because usually with the debut full length album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making Portrait of the Goddess, did you felt like any pressure at all to follow up Dust to Ashes?
not at all. I just felt like we were writing some cool songs for that. And again, I kind of just, after Dust to Ashes and seeing the way that we were being received, I kind of knew that we were onto something. And I just felt really good about playing those shows. And, you know, once, once Portrait came out, of course, there was just no expectations back then. We just wanted to put out a record and hope that people liked it. And that record came out, and locally, it did really well for us. And then we kind of started making a lot of noise around here, and then sort of started traveling out to other states, and being on Indecision where they had good distribution. That was like the first record where we were like, okay, well, people out of state get this record, so let's go and tour now. That was the record that really gave us that push to tour.
Yeah, definitely. And it came out like it literally like a year after Dust to Ashes. Did
Yeah,
you like started writing for this like right away?
we started writing for it like literally right away. Yeah,
Nice. Nice. And one thing I thought was interesting, like you did like this just another pretty face, Savior,
yeah.
Saint, Salvation. Like those are like re-recorded did from the first album. So what made you guys decide to re-record these songs again and put them on here?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think we just wanted to have a better recording.
Yeah.
And like there was a new drummer on that record. That's when Derek joined the band. So we wanted to have his drumming on the record as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And kind of moving on to the next album, This Is Love, This Is Murderous. I love
Yeah.
this album. I consider it kind of like you guys' Black Album. So, do you feel
It
like you
definitely
guys
is.
were on to something when making this album?
Uh definitely. Once I kind of heard that record and once it started taking shape, um, I knew that I had a feeling about that record, and it came out and it sold pretty well, and it just kept selling for a lot of years. And that was the record that really we saw like the biggest jump in. Actually, we didn't see the biggest jump. We saw that's the record we realized that okay, something's happening here, and then we turned into a full-time band. That's the record that allowed us to go to Europe and places like that. It had great distribution on Trustkill. It was on Roadrunner Records all over the world. And so that record got pushed, and it was the first time that I felt like, you know, people were like kind of getting exposure to like what we were trying to do, and it got received really well. And then we
Yeah.
saw a lot of like the influence. It was cool.
Yeah. And of course, last year was, of course, the 20-year anniversary of This Is Love, This Is Murderous. So
Yeah.
do you have like a different feeling about this album now as opposed to when you first put it out almost 20, now going on 21 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, it was so the time that we were doing that record, it was so we could feel something was like stirring, and it was just a very exciting time. We felt like whatever we do is just, like we're proud of it, and it was definitely like we were nervous because it was the first record that people were expecting. No one really was having expectations of anything before, so we were just hoping that it kind of lived up to whatever people's expectations of us were going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was like the whole like touring cycle? Because I know you mentioned you started going to Europe for the first time. So what was it like playing in front of like different countries, and all that stuff?
That was crazy, man. Like just getting to be in like front of just seeing the way that like just the difference in the way that people like are at shows. Like the crowds are different. Being around different languages, it's really cool. Having people that don't speak English at all, but they sing every word in English. That's crazy. It was a dream come true. I know it's one of those things where I always like wanted to go to Europe in my life and play music. And it's funny because we were going so much that like I was almost getting sick of it, and now I like miss it so much, and I wish I didn't get ever sick of it. But yeah, it's cool,
Yeah.
man.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and you pretty much put out like like your first three albums came out like a year after each other. So what keeps you
Yeah.
guys like really like motivated and inspired at that time?
Well, that time we just really wanted to get to a level where we felt like people were receiving the record, and I think that This Is Love, This Is Murderous was the record that it means a lot to people because it was like a lot of people's introduction into like metalcore, and for us, it's like that's the record that like started everything. So it's really cool to write a record that people are so like attached to, you know.
Right.
It just I love writing records that makes people attached. The only thing about records that people are attached to is that the next record is going to be so judged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thus the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty much led me into the next
Yeah,
album, which of course it came out like 3 years later. Did you
yeah.
really wanted to like take your time and to like hone in your craft with the truth?
Not necessarily. It was more like we took a lot of time between records because we started picking up a lot of steam with This Love Is Murderer. So we kept getting offered tours, and we were touring so much. So we did a big tour cycle off of This Is Love because it had a lot of legs on it. It kept selling. So we just kept pushing the truth back. But yeah, I mean, the truth was that record where we decided to kind of take a little bit more of a streamlined approach to some of the songs and just kind of like do what we did well, like kind of clean up song structures. I felt like that record was a huge record for us learning how to play songs. Like when I listen back to This Love Is Murderous, a lot of the songs are just parts in the parts, no flow. There's a lot of good songs on that record, but there's a lot of songs I feel like are just very immature. Whereas I think The Truth has like a collection of like really good off timing heavy stuff and just really good song structures and stuff. So I think that's where we grew up a lot on that record. I love those songs, man. I feel like the only thing I don't like about that record is the recording. I feel like it doesn't really capture how heavy the songs actually are. Because when we play those songs live, it's like, you hear it and you feel it. So it's really cool. But I'm very proud of that record. That was the record where we kind of like reached like, you know, the point where we never thought we'd ever be at. Um, of course, people were like, "Oh, there's too much singing," and I'm like, "Well, listen. If you listen to any of our other stuff, there's singing on everything. It just was
Yeah.
a point where it was very chorus based, which is I think people's setback. But people love that record. I love that record.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
man,
definitely think it's like my second favorite album from you
that's
guys.
cool.
It's like This Is Love is number one. This is like number two.
Yeah,
So of course, he
that's
also
cool.
worked with Rob Caggiano, formerly of
Yeah,
Anthrax and Volbeat. So how did he
yeah.
end up like producing the album?
We really liked what he did for this record called the band called the Agony Scene, and also he did a Cradle Filth Records, and so we kind of wanted to kind of work with them because of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome because I like those Cradle albums, like Nymphetamine. I feel like that's like a great album. Came out around
Great
the
record.
same time as the This Is Love, This Is Murderous.
Yeah,
It's like
so that's the record why we kind of went to Rob.
yeah,
But that there's the process of that record just got shot to shit. It took forever. Rob had like a medical emergency. It just kind of went off track. I just don't like the recording of that record. Maybe one day we'll re-record it or remaster or remix it.
yeah. And then next up is Declaration. I
That's
like
my
this
favorite record.
album. I'm like, I don't think not a lot of people talk about this album. So what was it like kind of like going from this to this?
Well, the thing with Declaration, which is my favorite record, we were battling with a lot of record label stuff at the time, but also it was like I felt like around that time it was a changing of the guard. You know what I mean? The newer bands like Suicide Silence and Job for a Cowboy and bands like that were coming up, and the older bands like us and Unearth and Dark Sour were kind of being like shy, like kind of slushed away. Even though that record Declaration, I thought was the most fierce thing that we've ever done. Um, I love that record so much. The best thing about that record, though, too, is when we put the truth out, everybody thought we were going to kind of follow the footsteps of like Avenged Sevenfold, and Atreyu, and 18 Visions, and even Throwdown, and try to write more rock and roll shit and try to become a radio band. And we wrote Declaration as a complete fuck you to anybody that thought we were ever going to do that. And because that's what we are. We're not a rock band. We never tried to be a rock
you're
band.
a metal
Just because
band.
we have singing choruses doesn't mean we're trying to be a rock band. You
Yeah,
know what I
just
mean?
like
Like,
fuck the haters, do what you want.
yeah, so that record was that. And unfortunately, it just came out at a weird time for our record label stuff. It just was weird. It didn't get the proper push and promotion. Trustkill went bankrupt shortly after that, so they really didn't push that record much.
Yeah, it's a damn shame because I feel like it could have been something like it. Like
I
the
agree.
songs itself kick ass.
Yeah, I think it has a really cool cult following, which I think is cool.
All right. And I know during that time, I want to talk about because you started another band called The Innocent briefly.
Mhm.
Like, I'm always curious about that. Like, nobody ever talks about them either.
Yeah, the Innocent was cool. It was me and Brooks Wackerman, who plays for Avenged Sevenfold now, on drums. Ryan Sin, who played in a band called The Distillers, and Dave Nassie, who eventually played in Bleeding Through. So what happened is we started doing the Innocent, and there was like we did a couple demo songs. We were going to kind of take it to a different level, and then Jonah left Bleeding Through, and we had a guitar player vacancy, so we just kind of moved Dave Nassie from the Innocent into Bleeding Through, and that kind of killed the Innocent. So because all of our riffs just went into Bleeding Through.
Yeah. And then, of course, the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, the self-titled.
Okay.
I like this album. I like pretty much the same thing with Declaration. I feel like they're almost kind of like brother and sister in a way.
Definitely.
Wait. So tell me about making the self-titled.
The self-title, we definitely wanted to mirror it off of Declaration. Unfortunately, and I loved working with Zeus, but with the record too, it was awesome. He was a really cool dude. I think that record came out at a really interesting time of Bleeding Through. I think a lot of Bleeding Through, probably half of the band didn't even want to do the band anymore, and I was one of them. And I was kind of just checked out mentally after that. It was just I was going through a lot of mental shit at the time. I loved that record. I feel like we could have done a better job, but I feel like the songs on that record are awesome. I think that record's like a total cult following record as well, from like Declaration, because it was two records that just kill. Like, and then doing a record label change at the time, just I was very proud of that record. I just feel like maybe we didn't give enough energy to it as like we should have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, like, because usually with a self-titled album, it's always like the band's first. But when it's like in the middle of in the career, in
Yeah.
the timeline, I always feel like that's like a change or a new start. So what
That
was
I
sort of
mean,
like the
I'll be
reason
honest.
for it being self-titled?
That record I thought was going to be the last record we did.
Yeah.
I went into the recording of that record saying that was going to be the last one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it could have. I feel like the album sort of like it could have been like a defining thing for you guys, especially with
Yeah.
it being self-titled. All right. And then, of course, moving on to 2011, you did this project Suffer Well with Sorrows
Yeah.
in 2011. Tell me about that.
Sufferwell was awesome. Sufferwell was like kind of just like a project, but the songs were great. I got to work with Mick Kinney and some really cool people on that record. It just was a record that came out when I was transitioning in my life from like full-time musician. I opened my gym. I wanted to open my gym and become like more like involved with my gym. So that just came out at a time when I just kind of really music wasn't really at the forefront of my life. I was burnt out, didn't have the energy. So we played some shows, but then it just got to a point with Sufferwell where like, now I'm doing two bands. I had a third one going on with I did I'm War with Alex from Atreyu.
Yeah.
But that was
Now
all
killing
during
it
a
with Dead
time where I don't
Icarus.
know what I think was happening with me is I was I wasn't satisfied with Bleeding Through at the moment, just because I felt like we were in a weird limbo state. We've been a band for a long time. We weren't a full time touring band anymore, but we're moving farther away from each other. It was just getting really hard, and we were burnt out. So I was doing these other projects to kind of get me through, but I really realized that like they were just projects. I never really wanted to go full with anything with it.
Yeah. And talking about like the last album before the breakup, The Great Fire, I thought this
Yeah,
was a really good album. Tell me about this.
that's a really sneaky record. Like we really put a lot into that record as far as like as far as like the rawness of it. I love a lot of those songs. Um, I just think both those records that were on Rise Records, I truly believe that that record label had no idea what to do with a band like us, and they didn't really care. I think they just really wanted to have the name Bleeding Through on the label, but I don't know. I felt like they just wanted to kind of show that they could sign those older bands, but they really didn't do what we needed them to do. I guess we didn't really feel a lot of love from that label at all, so we didn't really tour much off that record, and I feel like it just got lost.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also have like the special edition where you did like a live DVD. So what
Oh
made
yeah,
you
that
guys
shit was
decide to
awesome.
do a live
Yeah,
DVD?
we were really proud of that record. We were just, I think when the self-titled record came out and that record, we were just in a position with the band where we weren't a full-time touring band anymore, and it just wasn't really feeling like we wanted to do it at that capacity. We went really hard for a long time. Like we toured 8 months a year for like a decade. So it was like once we got to that point, it was hard for us.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and then of course like in 2014 the band announced that they broke up. So how hard was it to end Bleeding Through at that time?
uh, it was hard to end it. I mean, we all kind of knew in the back of our mind that we'd probably get back together at some point. We just needed a fucking break, and really, like that was me and a few of us just saying like we need a break from this. Um, I don't want to not enjoy playing this music anymore. This is like the thing that I love the most in my life, and I want to like love it. But I think that the reason why we couldn't give our focus and energy to the Great Fire and the self-titled was because people wanted to have kids or were having kids and wanted to start other careers like myself. People wanted to do other things, and the only way we could have done Bleeding Through going on for the rest of our life, is if we kind of put it on halt. Like we didn't know it was going to come back together, but we kind of probably all hoped it would. But really, those tours were just like kind of like the kind of, hey, we're not a full time touring band anymore, and the Bleeding Through that people are used to being so accessible, that's going to change. And we just needed that to regroup.
Yeah. And then I guess during the breakup you did the project at the Iron Sun with Enemy.
The
Tell me
Iron
about
Sun.
making that.
The Iron Sun was awesome. I fucking love that shit. That's basically a continuation of Supperwell. Just called it a different name. We started playing shows. That actually started getting like pretty popular. Um, and I kind of just noticed that the more popular that got, the more I just really missed being in Bleeding Through.
Yeah.
You
And,
know,
and
that's
then
really what it was.
of course then in 2017 the band got back together. So what made you guys
Yep.
decide to come back?
We just missed it. We missed each other. Like we really have like a great relationship with each other. We're really, we've maintained being really close, and we miss those moments. We miss the stage. We miss the connection with the fans, and the fans just wanted. I mean, fans really just wanted us to get back together. They never want us to end anyway.
Yeah.
And I just felt the fire. You know what I mean? It's like people come out of retirement all the time because they're just not totally ready. Um, I didn't know for sure that we were going to come back, but I just started writing some riffs and was like, let's do this. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was very, very proud of Love Will Kill All for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
man.
I thought was a great comeback album.
Thank you.
And were you kind of like nervous, like making like the first record back?
Always. I'm always a little bit kind of like nervous a little bit with things just because, like you never know how people are going to receive it. But I can honestly say Bleeding Through has been a band that like I don't feel like we ever really let our fan base down. You know what I mean? And maybe we're not that band that takes these crazy swings that's gonna like get us on fucking active radio because we could give a fucking rat's ass about that. All we want is the people that have been supporting us for all these years to dig it, and find something in the music that they love about it. And I think that we did a good job with that. It was cool to come back and do videos. We had some momentum going after that. The only thing that really killed that momentum was COVID.
Yeah.
COVID happened and we had to cancel everything we had going on. But that COVID was challenging for everybody, especially us.
Yeah, because I know like that the whole pandemic really fucked up the whole music industry, and a lot of bands and artists were struggling. But for you personally, how did you manage to like go through deal with through all that stuff?
It was really hard. I mean, I just worked on as much stuff as I could with my gym and stuff, and tried to dive into work and stay busy. With Bleeding Through, we didn't do anything. I don't even think I posted from the Bleeding Through page in like 2 years. We just like cut it. You know what I mean? And it was like, but I noticed that during that time, bands were super annoying with what they were posting. So I'm like, maybe we should just go away, right? But I didn't know that we were going to come back. When it was time for us to like make a decision whether we wanted to do it again, um, I had to make sure everyone wanted to do it, and people were pretty fired up. And I think COVID is the reason, honestly, why we came back with such a fire this time.
Hell yeah. Because I know, of course, 2022 you did the Little Rage EP. I thought that was like just three songs, just no bullshit, just
Yeah,
kick to the teeth with that.
yep.
So how did that idea of the EP come to be?
Well, that was kind of one of those things that we wanted to do. We're like, we can't come back empty-handed. We've been gone, and we can't just keep promoting Level Kill All. Like, let's switch over. Let's write some new songs. So when we came back and started playing shows again, we just wanted to have something out like right then and there that we can get behind and just go with.
Nice. Nice. I think
Yeah,
that's a good EP, which then leads into the upcoming new album, Nine, which comes out on Valentine's Day next year. So how
yeah.
was the whole writing and recording process like for the new Bleeding Through album?
The new stuff's different because we're all like scattered all over the place. So it's a lot of file sharing. Everybody kind of put together their riffs, and then we just kind of work with our producer, and we kind of just we through all of the riffs, we kind of come up with our songs. And I think it's really cool the way that like I could tell who wrote every song because the songs on the record are so different, but the overall vibe is the same. Like I tell people like if they like, I'd say it's a mix of Declaration and the Truth.
Nice.
That's a like it's a lot of Marta influence. She's on a lot of the record. She composed a lot of it, arranged a lot of the music, wrote a lot of the music. First time she's done a lot more than what she normally does. Everybody just put their 2 cents in. Everybody put their best riffs in, and the record's super dark and orchestral. It's very musical, but very heavy and very, very, very dark.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking dark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was gonna ask if musically did you want to continue in the same vein as Love Will Kill Law, or did you wanted to try something new or different that Bleeding Through hasn't done before?
It's all in the same like vein. I'd say the record that's probably closest to is probably Declaration. Just in the rawness of it and how it's just heavy and very black metal.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And what would you say like the overall like message and theme is behind Nine?
The message of Nine is a lot of mental health. It's a lot of the way things affect us, like kind of just like social sicknesses of uh social media and always wanting more. Grass is always greener, never being always being checked out. Everybody's mentally checked out all the time because there's so much shit going on all the time. Um, a lot of just um, how I've personally dealt with mental health in my life and the burden that it's been on a lot of people in my life that I love. It's a lot of triumphant kind of working through those moments. But yeah, it's a lot of looking at yourself in the mirror type of like of shit. You know what I mean? It's very, it's about how to me society and the way we are is so fucking fake and everything is so fake and it's just keeps getting worse and we're just accepting it as truth. We
Yeah,
accept everything. I could say I'm the starting pitcher for the New York Yankees, and if I say it enough times, people will fucking believe it. You know what I mean? And it's like it's insane.
yeah.
So it's about just kind of like the downfall of how I think our social society is and how that's playing a factor in our mental health and how we've never been so mentally unstable as a world as we are now. Because we can never take victories as being victories and as positives because we always a click away from looking at somebody that perceives to have better life than us.
Yeah, and I love like the singles that you released so far. Like
Thank
Our
you.
Brand is Chaos is just more like kind of like fuck around and find out. But then
Yeah,
Dead but So Alive is just really fast in your face. And then the latest single, Path of Our Disease, I think was a totally different. So I feel like every song like almost captures like a different emotion that like you and
totally.
Marta and
And when
everybody feels at the time.
that's the thing. Like the record goes in these like waves with it, where it's like you capture the emotion of the song. And every song kind of has its own thing, you know. It's really cool, man. I'm stoked on it.
Yeah. Yeah, especially loving the latest single now with having Marta singing. Like
Yeah,
how does it work? Because I feel like that opens like whole new doors,
yeah.
having
She
like
sings a
two
lot on
vocals.
this. She sings a lot on this record. And it's just kind of we started introducing that on Level Kill All a little bit more. She would do backups, and then the Rage EP, like she sang a lot on those songs, and it just I want her to sing more. I want her to be more of a face of the band. I don't want to sing as much. I want other people in the band to be like more like a face of it. And she's so talented, and she's been in the band for so long, and she's done such a great thing for women in band and like women's empowerment and feeling like there's a place for them in this music that, you know, fucking 10 years ago there wasn't any girls in the band. You know what I mean? Like now like females are taking over, and it's fucking awesome because the talent, it just makes everything better because now everybody's talent is being shown.
Hell
And I think
yeah.
that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and it
So I
definitely
wanted this record to really be focused around her showing her talents. And it's her record, man. It's fucking, she's great on this record.
yeah, and like tonality, it makes it sound very different because you know, like between you and Marta's voice, it definitely like the tonality makes it sound very different and unique.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
very happy with it.
Yeah, and talking about like the lyrical content, because of course, being as you are the vocalist, when it comes to making lyrics, you have to like put yourself in a certain mind frame in order to come up with lyrics, or do the lyrics just come like naturally and organically?
I think for me, my process is I listen to the song and then I listen to it so much that it gets stuck in my head. I'm not one of these people that listens to it and writes as I go. It's in my head. So I'm playing it in my head and working out, and I write lyrics that way. I just need quiet. Just need quiet, and I need the song to be playing like in my head and me to be thinking about it. And really, I just think of a vibe. I start with a couple words that capture the vibe, and I can build off of that.
Yeah, 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 and of course, like, would you like do you try to like leave your lyrics like open to interpretation or do you want like the listener to like feel like what you're conveying?
I like open it to interpretation. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There's some stuff lyrically that's obvious, so people are going to capture what I'm trying to talk about. But for the most part, it's open to people's interpretation for sure.
All right. And of course, this is your second album with a sharp tone record.
Yeah,
So how's like the relationship in with Bleeding Through and the label?
they're the best. I mean, they're the easiest label period to work with. Like you need them, they're there. There's very little like tug of war going on, man. They let you know what they expect. They let you know what you are gonna get, and they deliver on it. And it's rare for us because we've always been promised the world. They don't promise us anything. They're very straight up, which for a band like us, being around for 25 years, we don't want but someone to blow smoke up our ass anymore. Just give it to us straight, serve it to us straight. And I think they're a perfect label, and they give us a lot of they put a lot into us. They put a lot into all their bands. They treat everybody equal, and I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, but of course, like Bleeding Through has now been around for 25 years. Years, gotta think about it, Brendan. 25 years of
It's
Bleeding
crazy.
Through. I know you had like the 4 year break, but did you think that Bleeding Through would be around for this long? And is there still
25 years.
anything with the band that you would still want to achieve after all these years?
I think we've already achieved it. We it's a great place to be in. We're a band that we will always draw a fucking good crowd with our fucking awesome fans. We're always gonna play our ass off. We have our fan base, which is great. We're still able to play shows and do things, travel the fucking world, like new experiences. We just played a fucking cruise. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, so we're still doing things. We're still traveling all over the world, and it's amazing. So that's all we want, is to have this ability to play this music all over the world. We don't care about being the biggest band. We don't care at all. Like, we're 25 years in, man. It's not our time. And anybody that thinks it's going to be our time now, like, dude, come on. Like, we have our slot. We worked hard for our slot in history to be a band that can just keep on going and always have a fan base and always have support. And we really just want to keep this going to promote the newer blood, the future of this music, to keep going. You know what I mean? That's why we do this. We do this to just keep it all rolling.
Yeah. Is there any like bucket list things that you would do? Like ever wonder, like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we did that?
Man, I mean, fuck. Play with Metallica.
Yeah.
No, I mean, really like, I've always wanted to play the continent of Africa. I've always wanted to just, our friends in Avenged Sevenfold just got back from India. So going there would be fucking crazy. Like I just want to play places that are like I never thought I'd ever be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it.
Gotta try to play in Antarctica. I mean, Metallica did it.
Might as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd be the first metalcore band to play in Antarctica.
for real. That's great.
But at least Metallica was like the first metal band to play there.
Yeah.
There, yeah, and sort of talking about like playing live because I've only seen you guys like twice. That was both at the Furnace Fest in Alabama, but I noticed you play with like a bunch of different bands, like especially with like
Yeah.
the Ozfest bands, and then of course with your own tours and stuff. Do you ever notice like a different like crowd reaction depending on like the tours or festivals that you play with?
Well, yeah, like if we play more of a metal festival, it's not going to be so much like crowd surfing and it's just going to be more like circle pits and headbanging. But like if you play like a metal, like more of like a hardcore crowd, like a Furnace Fest, it's more hardcore people. They want to jump around, they want to like walk on heads, get in your face and grab the microphone. So I accept all of it, but I like all of it. I think I like both vibes. I like the rawness of like what a hardcore show kind of feels like, and then also like shows where you're kind of playing in front of bigger crowds. I like kind of just having command of like a sea of people. Feels fucking cool, man.
Nice. And so kind of also like in the end to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Bleeding Through? I know we got nine coming out in February. It's just anything else with
Yeah.
the release of nine that you'd like to plug in terms of like tours
Well,
and
yeah,
stuff.
we have a couple of shows in December that we're doing. We're doing a show in Orange County and a show in San Diego. Cool lineup: Carnifex, Necrogoblicon, God Forbid, I Declare War, Last of Our Kind. Cool fucking lineup. We have those, and then really we're just gonna start hard pushing for the record and promoting the record. Set up some shows to kind of play more of a record release. 2025, we're gonna probably play a lot of underplays. Like we just want to play small, cool rooms everywhere, like 150, 200 cap rooms. Like
Yeah.
that's all we want to play, and just blow it the fuck out and make it just the craziest shows ever.
Yeah.
And just play with bands we want to play with diverse bands. I feel like we've been playing with a lot of the same type of bands lately. I want to diversify it. I want to put some cool like bands that wouldn't even make sense being on a show with
Yeah.
us, but
And
fuck, just
possibly
put them
gain
on
new
the show.
fans.
New fans, just getting in front of new people, promoting new bands and shit like that. That's what we really want to do.
Yeah. I'm hoping you all make it to the East Coast. Love to see you all in Atlanta.
That'd be great. We're hoping to get to Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, I drove
Yeah,
to Birmingham to see you twice, so I would do it again
I
if I
want to
have
try to.
to.
We want to try to do an Atlanta, Nashville, and probably like Charlotte weekend.
Hell yeah. Yeah, but thank you, Brandon, for this
Thank you,
conversation.
man.
I'm so glad to finally have Bleeding Through on my
Yeah, thanks,
show.
man.
It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to
Just
close this
you
out?
know, check our new stuff out. You know what I mean? I know it's like one of these things where a band's been around for 25 years, and I'm even guilty when a band that I love for that long puts out a new record. Sometimes I don't listen to it for like a year or so. You know what I mean? But listen to this record. If you're a fan of Bleeding Through, you'll find something in this record that you're gonna love. So
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
thanks for the opportunity, man. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah. So everybody, Brandan Schieppati from Bleeding Through, and we'll see you next time.